This is Ray Houghton, and you are listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham.
Hello, yes, a good evening, a good afternoon, or a good morning to you, however you may be listening and wherever you may be listening. This is the Fulham Focus podcast coming to you live on a Monday night, or depending on when you're listening to this, a Tuesday morning, a Thursday afternoon, whenever. But we're just here to talk all things Fulham, as I know we all love to do and you all love to listen to. But first, thanks to Ray Houghton for introducing this week's show. Ray made 145 appearances, scoring 21 goals for the Whites across 3 seasons. He was the star player in a whirlwind Malcolm McDonald side that played entertaining football, narrowly missing out on promotion to the top flight away to Derby in unjustified circumstances. Houghton's individual moment of glory came when he scored one of Fulham's most iconic goals, lobbing the keeper at St James's Park from 30 yards out as the Whites went on to record a 4-1 away win. Let's hope for more of that this weekend. Ray Houghton, we salute you. For some reason, I've been asked to host this week. Jmac was busy, so I've been over to take over to you. But enough about me. Let's all go through and introduce our panel for tonight. And I shall start off, I think I'll go geographically tonight. I'm going to guess from where I am. We're going to go down to Brighton and introduce Matt Domm. Matt, a good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, mate.
Good. By the way, anyone who's expecting a long-winded rant about how posh I am, in the words of in the style of Jmac, very disappointed. I am very much lower class compared to him, so don't expect anything along those lines. But enough about me. Let's get back to introducing our guest, and it's Mark Wyatt coming all the way from, apparently on this thing it says Margate, or somewhere near there. So Mark, a good evening to you.
Nowhere near Margate, but good evening to you as well, Matthew.
Blame the technology. That's what it's saying to me. That's what I'll go with. Right, enough about introducing the panel. We've got to get into the meat of the of tonight's podcast and at West Ham. I think we've all had reasonable time to calm down over the result and just recover from what was pretty devastating result. I don't know if devastating is too harsh a word to say, but when you consider how we started out the game and then just the sucker punch and sucker punches of the 2 West Ham goals, it's fair to say that it was a very disappointing game. And going up to the, we'll start off with the opening 10 minutes. We had 3 very clear chances. Abubakar Kamara being the clearest one. We were cutting them open well. We actually had something going. Matt, what did you think about the opening sort of 10, 15 minutes of the game? And we've talked a lot about our defence being not great this season, but based on the fact that we couldn't convert anything in that opening 10 minutes, do we need to be concerned about our attack as well going forward?
It's difficult whether we need to be concerned. I mean, the good news is we did create some chances, and there were some 2 or 3 really good chances in the opening 10 minutes. But, attacks normally miss chances throughout a game, and if you let everyone in at the other end, then it doesn't really matter what you do at the other in attack. But that I've watched it back, and that Kamara one was an unbelievably good chance. You can see kind of how slow his brain is working. He doesn't know what he's going to do when he gets played through. And in the end, it's sort of, I thought it was a world-class save, and I've watched it back, and he makes it easy for the keeper. He sort of, it's a bit of a powder puff shot. There's not much in it. He should have gone across the keeper, but he went down low and he didn't put any power on it. And it was a really bad miss. And then when we were 1-0 down, the chance that Mitrovic had, fair enough, he's done really well to get to it, but having won that, got to the end of that header, he really should be putting that in the net. So it's a fair point you make about whether we should be concerned about the attack, but we're creating chances. So for me, it's still, we just really need to tighten up at the back, otherwise we've got no chance.
Yeah, Mark, touching on what Matt said there, the most obvious one is the Abubakar Kamara chance. Do you think that's something that he's been somewhat in and out of the side recently? Do you think that's something that if he had more regular game time under his belt, and it would be something that he'd be more likely to finish? Because he'd have they're a little bit more confident about being a regular starter? Do you think that the fact that he's had a bit of a spell on the sidelines and has only just come back into the fray, do you think that had any effect on it at all?
To be blunt, no. I don't think he's a good enough finisher. I really don't. I mean, if you compare his chance to, I think it was Ivan Cavallero in the Wolves game, very similar chances being released through on goal, one-on-one versus the keeper, different side, different angle on it, but Cavallero can tuck it away nicely. And it's not down to confidence, I don't think. It's just down to genuine technical ability. And unfortunately, I think we lack that in our front, kind of in our forwards. I think Mitrovic is a natural finisher, but past him, I don't think we have anyone who I'd feel confident when they're running through on goal. Sessegnon, he's missed a couple of chances. The one at Liverpool stands out when he came through on goal. I think Schürrle takes so many shots that we'd probably see a lot more goals from him if he was as clinical as our other players. And I think Kamara is just not good enough in those positions. He needs to be a lot more calm and collected. And I don't think that's going to come with a run of games. I just don't think he's a good enough player, unfortunately.
See, now my take on, he's not a good enough finisher. It wasn't too dissimilar, the position. It wasn't too dissimilar from his goal the other week against Leicester. So it's obviously something that he's shown that he can finish. But as I alluded to, whether or not it's just the fact that it's a lack of a run of games, and Ranieri is somewhat famous for the whole Tinkerman thing, and in fact we'll go on to the Tinkerman thing. The fact that he named an unchanged back four / back five, if you want to count, for Sergio Rico in goal. Matt, did that somewhat surprise you? The fact that we've had concerns about our defence in the past, and Slav's way of trying to work that out was keep switching the back four until I find something that can keep a clean sheet. Were you somewhat surprised that he went with the same back line as the one that shipped 4 goals at Old Trafford?
It's not a surprise so much that, because we've been crying out all season for a consistency in the back line. So it's not a surprise that he's gone for it. But it is a surprise, I think, which 4 he's opted for. He's moved Odoi back to right back. And I mean, I really like Odoi as a person. He seems like a lovely bloke. And I was really hoping to be wrong about him, but he is not up for this level. And I would even question whether he was good enough for the Championship. He's prone to 4 or 5 mistakes, or maybe up to 5 mistakes every game. And you just don't get away with it at this level. In the Championship, we were good enough going forward that we outscored teams most of the time. And it was easy to kind of not notice what he was doing at the back. But let's look at that first goal. Firstly, why is he so high up the pitch when they start to attack? And then why are you diving in? I'm sure we're going to come on to Odoi, but I'll stop there for now. And if I could answer your question, I'm not surprised that Ranieri stuck to it, because it's what's needed. But I just don't think Odoi particularly should be anywhere near that team.
Mark, I'll ask the same question to you. Were you surprised about this back four? We're going to get onto the goals themselves in a second. And, I think a lot of people are going to be very angry about Dennis Odoi's contribution this weekend. But just in general, were you surprised at that back four?
I wasn't surprised, no. I don't think there was much of a difference we could have made to it. And I think consistency, especially in your defence, is really important in this league. So I think he chose probably the right team, especially seeing as we're playing at home. This isn't exactly like we're playing, an away game like of late against Chelsea or United, ones where we expect to have our backs against the wall. So I was quite pleased to see the same kind of consistency in that back five. But again, it was just, for the millionth time this season, just an awful defensive performance. I thought it was absolutely shocking at times, the space that we are affording West Ham when they had the ball. And it wasn't just down to them collectively, it was down to individual mistakes and simple errors. I thought Joe Bryan had one of his worst games for us as well. And I thought Tim Ream looked, a far cry player of what he was like last year for us. And again, Alfie Mawson, I mean, he seemed to pick up a bit of consistency at some point in the last 2 games, but now that kind of has gone back on itself again, because I thought it was a bad performance from him. And I mean, I don't even need to mention Dennis Odoi's name, because we all know exactly how he fared on Saturday night. So as going back to your question, I think I wasn't surprised we played that defence. I was surprised, if anything, about how badly they performed together.
Right, indeed. Now, I suppose it's time we've got to get into the goal. Matt alluded to it earlier. The first goal, I'm just going to leave it open to you because I've gone past the point of however many times I've looked at it, just so many questions to be asked that I can't really put my mind down to a single one to ask. So I'm just going to sort of open the floor over to you. If you want to discuss both goals, if you so desire, because both of them are sort of equally as bad as each other. I think one of us on the much coveted and much desired to be in Fulham Focus WhatsApp group said it was the worst goal we've conceded this season, that being the second one. I'll just open. I think this is one where one of you wanted to have your rant, so I'll just open it over to you and you just sort of give it all barrels. Matt, you first.
I think it was me who mentioned that about that second goal being the worst. I think I stand by that. Out of the 42 we've conceded this season, I mean, there were 4 or 5 separate errors just in the one goal. I mean, so let's start with the cross comes in. Adoy is 5-10 yards off his man with no attempt to block the cross whatsoever. By the way, both goals come from that side of the pitch. Mawson, for some reason, is marking air on the box. He pushes up towards the cross. I don't know whether he sort of half thinks Adoy might get a touch to it, but I don't know what he's thinking. But it means Ream sees Mawson step up, so he has to come across to the striker, who, by the way, Chicharito, the nickname, that stands for Little P. Just bear that in mind when he beats Tim Ream in the air, who's supposed to be a centre-back, and flicks it on to Antonio, who's then got the entire box to score from. Joe Bryan, he should be tucking into cover, but for some reason earlier in the move, he's tried to close the ball down up near the halfway line, but then there's no communication between him and Andre Schürrle, and Schürrle should be covering for him, but he's just sort of jogging around by himself outside the box. And every single one, barring Rico, is massively at fault for that goal, and it's absolutely terrible, especially considering we've brought in a manager who's supposed to be dealing with the defence. So, have I seen that wrong, or is that the worst goal we've conceded so far?
No, I think when you sort of factor in everything about it, you mentioned the fact that Javier Hernandez won a header in the box. If that had been Andy Carroll, that would have taken some of the sting off it. If Andre Schürrle had run back full pelt from his position and just didn't get there in the nick of time, then it would have taken something off because it would have showed that he was trying to do something. So absolutely, worst goal we've had all season. I'd have to refresh my memory. I'd have to go back and watch all 42. Crikey, that's a lot to go through. But the first one, Wilfred Zaha at the hammy end, that was, from what I recall, that was pretty bad on the day. The first goal, I don't think there's really too much. You mentioned Dennis Adoy, but I think we can also sort of somewhat take nothing away from Robert Snodgrass. It was a fine finish. But Mark, sort of again going back your views on goals 1 and goals 2, and do you agree with Matt that it was the worst goal that we conceded all season?
Like you, I can't be bothered to look through all those goals we've conceded. So I won't brand it the worst one we've conceded so far. You've got to agree with everything Matt says. I mean, it's absolutely shambolic. And I think the thing that stuck out the most for me was ball watching. We were too afraid to kind of go out and make challenges. So we just let the ball go past us, let us watch it. And we just didn't track our runners, which is kind of such basic kind of stuff. I think for the first goal, very similar to Stuart Armstrong's goal against us for Southampton a few weeks back. One of those ones where you just got to applaud the finish. I don't think Rico could have done anything to get near that one. And although it could have been avoided getting into that situation, like we said with Adoy again, not closing down his man or trying to do some kind of crazy, weird, twisting leg challenge on that far-hand side. I'm not sure what he was doing, but he got mugged off pretty easily by Felipe Anderson there. Yeah, it's just individual errors all over again. I think I just agree with Matt that I think everyone needs to look at themselves in that dressing room and think what's going on there. Because even the midfield, you look in the build-up play to the second goal, the midfield, they're watching the play go by and the ball goes out wide, and by the time it gets into the box, like we said, Andre Schürrle is kind of watching play go by. You got Seri, who was kind of jogging around on the spot a little bit, just waiting for the ball to kind of recycle. It's just not good enough from any of the team, is it?
No, indeed. And I suppose we may as well get on to the second half, even though there wasn't really that much to discuss, but there is a talking point to come out of it. Do you think that second goal and just the general atmosphere around the club, certainly around the fans, do you think we just gave up in that second half? Because off the top of my head, I can't think of, we had the amount of chances we had in that first 10 minutes. I can't recall us off the top of my head having anything anywhere close to that in the second half. It just seemed so lethargic and somewhat seeing the game out. Matt, do you sort of agree with that? Do you think that there's just this level of acceptance around the club and around it's sort of drifted down to the players, or do you think the West Ham made a bigger contribution to that and just shut up shop and didn't give us a chance to do anything?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the heads really went down after that second goal. Thinking back, I can't really think of any chances we created after that goal, to be honest. Everything was, when it was 0-0 or we were 1-0 down. So, I mean, you can kind of understand, we've got 9 points so far and we're 2-0 down. It's pretty much game over from that point. But yeah, it kind of brings back the problem is there's no leader out there on the pitch. Tom Kenny's a decent captain if you're of the school where you give your best player or one of your best players the captain's armband. I'm not particularly. I don't really see the point of that. But there were no leaders out there. Mawson, he needs to step up. Mitrovic, when his head starts to go down, you really kind of think, well, we're done for here. It's really hard to take, but you can't. It's difficult to actually blame them for their heads dropping when this is happening every week, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And Mark, same question to you. Do you think this level of acceptance is just how bad we are? Because every club, even in the year, I don't want to say the R word too much for tempting fate, but even the year we went down, 2013-14, there was that level of acceptance through the fact, mainly, the 6-0 away to Hull, when we gave away the game against Everton, that finished 3-1. Just that level of what more can we do? We're trying, but our best just isn't good enough.
I think you're right, to be honest, which is a shame to say. And I think when you look at the players that should be kind of personifying the opposite of that and trying to drag us out of the hole, you look at people like Tim Ream, Tom Cairney, Mitrovic to an extent, players that last season, we could look to in a game to pull us out of this kind of rut. Considering he's wearing the armband, I think he's really ghosted out of a couple of games now, and I think he can make up for it with a couple of nice touches, and sometimes he builds up play well, or he'll have a shot, and he is that kind of player that can get the crowd on their feet with a good bit of play. But unfortunately, we need him to do more. And, players like him and, like I said, Mitrovic, Ream, they need to step up more. And I can't see that fight in them. I can't see that desire in them to kind of transition the ball and get people moving and get runners off of them. It's just not happening at the moment. And, it creates a negative atmosphere in the stands as well. And players definitely feed off of, crowd singing and getting involved in the game. So it can happen really easily. And I think we're really stuck at the moment. And again, we had a little mini revival, didn't we, when Ranieri first came in? Very short-lived, though. And now I fear that we could be going into this Christmas period with our heads down. If we don't manage to get anything from Newcastle away, it's going to be a really tricky time when we've got some really big games coming up, especially on the Boxing Day game against Wolves. I think they'll really show. That will be a really big kind of obvious glare at the gulfing difference between two sides that got promoted, if the game against Cardiff wasn't already something to prove that when we got hammered at the City Stadium. But yeah, overall, what else can you say? It needs to be so much better.
Right, and you mentioned there about this tricky Christmas period. We're going to touch on Newcastle away in a moment, but you've segued me very nicely there into our next section where we're going to discuss the January transfer window and exactly what we need to do.
Fulham.
Welcome back. Now, I don't know whether 17th of December is round about the time when, and sometimes even earlier, the rumours start flying about where things are going to go. Today, in fact, we heard one today that Alexander Mitrovic is being lined up by Everton. Believe it, whether or not you do, reports that he's unsettled since Slav left, all that nonsense. If you want to believe it, believe it. If you don't, fair enough. I don't blame you. But we've got to talk about January and whether or not we're going to make change, because we can all agree we can't go on the same way we have. There's got to be a change somewhere. And as much as I like our academy, I don't see a player coming in from there that's going to give the same level of boost and that bit of fight that we need. So it's got to come from outside. We can discuss. We can't really discuss how much money we have to spend because there's not really been a sort of firm figure laid down. We spent 100 million in the summer. How much of that do we have left, or of the money that we gain, how much do we have left, so on and so forth? Matt, I'll go to you first. I personally would say that get everything sorted defensively first and then move your way further up the pitch. If you want to add a winger, fine. If you want to add a new number 10 and get rid of Seri, which has been rumoured, fine. But I think the first thing we need to do is sort out that defensive line, as Claudio Ranieri has alluded to. He's Italian, he likes defence, so on and so forth. But to you, where do you think we need to strengthen first? And is there a certain player that you want to go for out there?
It's really tricky. Obviously, the defence, but I still think Adoy aside, I still think there are some decent players in there. And I still think Ranieri might have a chance to get something out of them. What I think we're lacking, in particularly in a Ranieri type team, is pace. And obviously the right wing, I think, is probably our weakest spot, or down the right in general. I don't think any of our right backs are any good. And I don't think any of our right wingers are any good. So someone who can kind of play all along that flank would be Victor Moses. I know he's out of favour at Chelsea. There's rumours that Crystal Palace might be in for getting him back. And if they're in for him, then, why not? If Khan decides he wants to try and spend his way out of this issue, then why not go for him? He's got the pace. He could do the kind of role that I think Ranieri is looking for Kamara to play, but he's a far, far superior player. So that's sort of where I'd be looking at. Try and keep coaching the defence, keep the consistency in the defence, but bring in some players who can fit that system of counter-attacking football. And Victor Moses fits the bill for me.
Okay, so Matt thinks that our first port of call should be to our friends down the road and go and visit Chelsea. Isn't it odd how we used to absolutely hate Chelsea, but now you go back in the past, Thomas Callas, Lucas Piazon, Damien Duff, Scott Parker, we all seem to embrace former Chelsea players. So obviously something's changed in the mindset there. Mark, same question to you. Do you have a certain player or a certain area of the pitch that we need to be focusing on? And if so, who should that magical player be?
I think the problems are all over the pitch, so it's difficult to narrow it down. I think if I look at our midfield, it's probably the area of the pitch I'm most content with, which is something that Fulham fans haven't been saying for a very long time now. But I think we are sorted in there if, that combination of Seri, Anguissa, Kearney and Chambers, as much as he's been playing there recently, can work itself out. I think we kind of leave ourselves with two real areas that we need to strengthen. Obviously, one being defence and one, like Matt said, being attack. I think in defence, we've been linked with Gary Cahill from Chelsea. A lot of people have kind of sniffed at that, but equally, I've seen a lot of people very pleased with that. I think that'd be a great signing for us if we could get Cahill in. He's experienced. I don't think he'd leave us exposed as we have been at centre back a few times. And we did get a lot of joy the last time we were in the Premier League from signing players that were perhaps coming towards the end of their career at a top 6-7 club, and managing to find a home for them at the Cottage. So if we can do that with Gary Cahill and he can help us out, then that'll be great. Attacking wise, I think we've been linked with Slimani, who obviously Ranieri has worked with before at Leicester. He's had a tough couple of years in the last few. He's kind of bounced around. I think he's on loan at Fenerbahce at the moment. But this is a guy who scored 30 goals in the Portuguese league. He is 30 years old now, so we'd kind of be doing something, going against our age kind of rule that we've got going on. But it could be an interesting one as well. At the moment, we give a lot of burden to Mitrovic, so I think he needs a bit of time. And then also I saw this morning we were linked with Jared Bowen, the Hull City winger. He plays on the right-hand side and he's left-footed, so he likes to cut in a lot. And he's done well for Hull, and they are kind of struggling in the Championship, but they're definitely in the bottom 4 or 5 at the moment. So I can imagine Nigel Adkins would be willing to let him go for a decent price if we could kind of nab him. And he's young as well. And then obviously we've got to mention that Steven Sessegnon signed a new contract today. So I'd like to kind of see him almost as a new signing because he's barely featured for us this season. And I think he can offer us something, a bit different in the back. So yeah, there's 4 players for you.
Okay, that's fine. Just a bit of a teaser for you. Some of the Fulham Focus team have sort of put together their ideal Christmas wish list of players they want to sign and have brought in. So look out for that in the coming days. Where whether or not you believe everything's going to be written, we'll see about it. Just one thing: we're talking about players that are going to be brought in. Do you guys see? I touched on Mitrovic earlier, and obviously I don't want it to happen, but whilst it's all there, we have to believe that there is the possibility that some players will leave. I'll give the example. Felix Magath, we brought Ryan Tunnicliffe in January, and by March, Tunnicliffe was out on loan to Blackburn. So don't rule out anything that players we've signed in the summer are automatically locked in for a full season. There is the chance for some change, even if it means you have to loan out some people or cut or terminate some loans. For instance, do you guys see us being a selling club as well as a buying club? Again, if so, where do you think the selling is going to take place? Mark, I'll go to you first. If we are to surrender any players, as it were, who do you think it's going to be?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I honestly don't really see why anyone would want any of our players at the current time, except for Mitrovic. I don't think that will happen. I think that's all child's play. I can't see that transfer happening. Interestingly enough, I've heard rumours that we would potentially see Fosu Mensah go back to Manchester United, terminate that loan in order for us to bring in another loan player due to the kind of rules of how many you're allowed to bring in over the set of the season. So the only one I could kind of envisage is maybe if Fosu Mensah left. Other than that, it's a difficult one because although we brought in a lot of players over the summer, as we know, we had a very thin squad after the playoff final and we needed to fill it out. So it's not as if we've got an abundance of players that we can offload. I don't think we'll become a much of a selling club unless worse comes to worse, and in May we're facing another season in the Championship, and then I guess we will see quite a few of our players have to leave due to financial constraints. But as I said, the only player I can really see maybe leaving would be Fosu Mensah if he's going to go back to Manchester United on loan.
Yeah, I think many people can sort of see that Timothy Fosu Mensah's time at the club is very short-lived. The fact that he's played so limited. In fact, I don't even think he's played a minute under Claudio Ranieri. Someone will clearly tell me if I'm wrong, by all means, at Fulham_Focus or at Mammy63 on Twitter. I'm sure people will tell me I'm wrong. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm not 100% sure our legalities and our flexibility in regards to loans, how many we can, how many we can't. If we terminate, for instance, can we terminate Schürrle's 2-year loan? Or have we paid a fee in some way that we can't? I'm not 100% sure, so we're just going to have to let that all sort of play out as it were. Matt, same question to you. If we are going to be a selling club in January, where do you see the extra funds coming from?
I think it kind of depends on how we do over the next few games. Funny, if the worst comes to the worst and we've got 9 points after New Year's Day, and the January transfer window opens, then is there some sense in looking to lock in as high a price as possible for some of the players who wouldn't be with us next year? Let's face it, if we've got 9 points in January, we're going down. It's looking that way anyway. But 2 or 3 wins over Christmas, and we'd still have a chance. And Khan might think, okay, if I get some players that Claudio wants, he might start to spend a bit. But if we do have 9 points, then do we start looking to sell the players who won't stay with us when we go down, which is, Seri, probably Anguissa. I think Ryan Sessegnon would leave as well. that one's a tricky one, but potentially there's quite a lot of money in that to build a squad who will, fight with everything to try and keep us up, but also stick with us to try and get us up again next year. I personally can't see us spending too much in January. I think Ranieri is probably brought in to get as much as he can out of this current team. And, like you say, we've got quite a small squad anyway, so it wouldn't actually make much sense to get rid of any of them.
No, I somewhat agree, but I do somewhat agree with the point that you raised, in that a lot of what we're going to be doing in January will depend on how well we do in these next couple of games. If we reel off wins against, I don't know what the order is, Newcastle, Wolves, and Huddersfield, I think that's right. If we reel off and get 9 points out of that, then we're looking at a much stronger position. But in turn, if we find ourselves 5 points off the drop in January, having lost those 3 games, then again I wouldn't be for it, but there is a sense of, what's the point in keeping these players? Why not start looking 6 months ahead and start looking to get a team that can get us out of the Championship and moving all the relevant players on.
Yeah, I mean, potentially they've got relegation clauses as well. I mean, obviously we don't know the ins and outs of the deals, but there's potentially money to be saved by not waiting until we go down, because it sounds kind of, I'm not resigned to the fact that we're going down, but by that point, if we have 9 points, it might make sense. And as you say, I'm not necessarily for the idea, but I could see why we would do it if we did do it. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a monetary sense to be had there. That sort of wraps up what we're going to be looking at in January. Now we go forward to what everyone's favourite part of the show is. At least it is mine. I hope it is yours. It's the quiz.
Fulham.
Hello, yes, and welcome back. It's quiz time. Round 1, guess the figure. And just a bit of a heads up, you can score 18, a maximum of 18 if you're listening at home, and 14 points are possible for each of our 2 contestants. And here we go with round 1, guess the figure. In 2004, Fulham beat Newcastle 4-1 on the road with an outstanding performance from Mark Crossley between the sticks. Crossley was saving shots with all body parts, including his face. How many shots did Newcastle have on target that day? And Mr. Dom, I will go to you first.
Oh, that's a good one. 14.
You'll go with 14. And Mark, how many for you?
Absolutely no idea. I'll go with 8.
8. Okay. It's a point to Mr. Dom, because apparently he saved 20 shots on target.
Unbelievable.
I do remember that game. I do remember that game distinctly. I lost track with how many shots he gave. It was an outstanding performance, and he kept his place in the team for a couple of weeks after that. Then we lost 4-1 to Chelsea, and that was the end of that. So anyway, a point to Mr. Dom. Question number 2. Bolton Wanderers are the only side other than Newcastle that Fulham have taken the most Premier League points off. So basically, Newcastle, we've taken a certain amount of points off them. They're our record, but we also have Bolton on there as well. So how many points have we taken off Newcastle in our time in the Premier League? This is out of 24 games, if that gives you any help with maths. Mark, I'll go to you first. How many points have we taken off Newcastle?
Out of how many games did you say?
24. So if my maths is right, that's out of 72.
Let's go 45 points.
45 points for Mark. Mr. Dom.
My first thought was 38, but let's go with 40, just to make it a bit closer.
Well, you've been right either way. It's a point for you, Mr. Dom, because it's 39 points, 24 games. So either way, you were right. Question number 3. How many different goal scorers have Fulham had in the Premier League so far this season? Mr. Dom, you first. How many different players have scored a goal for us?
In the league?
In the league, yes, just in the league.
I can only think of 3.
Is that what you have? 3? Okay. Mark, same to you?
I think it's 5.
Bingo. In fact, it is 5, so I'm going to give you a bonus point for that. which screws up the marking system totally, but yeah, we'll go with it. It's Christmas. Everyone's having fun. Yes, 5 different goal scorers this season. So it's Mitrovic has got 7. Schürrle has got 5, which for all his criticism about how many shots he wastes, that's actually pretty good. Abubakar Kamara has 2. Jean-Michel Sherry has 1, and Ryan Sessegnon has 1 as well. Question number 4. Ibrahima Cissé has played the least amount of minutes for Fulham so far in the Premier League this season. How many minutes has he played? And Mark, over to you first. How many minutes has Cissé played this year?
I'm going to say 16.
You'll go with 16. Matt, same to you.
I think he played most of a half of one game, like 25.
5. Point goes to Mr. Wyatt because he has played 17 minutes.
Oh.
They're very good with that. Now, moving on, round number 2. It's the back and forth round. And I don't know whether or not Danny's written this in preparation for our time in the Championship, but anyway, basically, I've got in front of me the top 10 players who scored, our top 10 goal scorers from our time in the Championship, 4-year spell. So I want you to name our top 10 goal scorers. Matt, I'll go to you first.
Ross McCormack.
That's the easy one. Of course he's there. Yes. Mark.
Alexander Mitrovic.
He is on there. He's number 7.
Oh,
So
yes.
to you. Matt. Oh, by the way, Ross McCormack was number 1. I don't know if I had to distinguish that, but I'm pretty sure it was obvious, but just in case. So yeah, McCormack 1, Mitrovic 7. Matt, over to you back.
Moussa Dembele.
Yes, he's on there. He was number 5. Mark.
Tom Kearney.
He was number 2 with 25 goals. Matt.
Suddenly struggling now. Hugo Rodallega, he got quite a few in our first season, I think.
He did indeed. He got 10 overall. Mark, to you.
I'll go with Stefan Johansson.
Indeed, he's got 19. He got more than Moussa Dembele, if you want to believe that. Matt, over to you.
Ryan Sess.
Ryan Sessegnon, indeed. He came 3rd. He has 20. Mark, over to you next.
I'm going to go with Floyd Aite.
Floyd Aite, he's on there. He came 6th. He had 13. One guess left from each of you. Matt.
Oh man, this is hard now.
Just for the purpose of you've managed to get the top 8 between you.
Okay. I've got to take a punt. Shawnee Aluko.
Unfortunately, not. He was 12th on the list. He had 8 goals. So, Mark, a chance for you to extend your lead. You got one more.
I think I'm going to go safe with Chris Martin, but I was going to throw a curveball out there and go Scotty Mello, but I'm going to stick with Chris Martin. You're
sticking with Chris Martin, and you'd be correct. He got 10. He's came in 9th on the list. The one person you were missing out on, Lucas Piazon. He scored 10.
Oh, wow.
There was I'll round up the order. McCormack 1, Kearney 2, Sessegnon, Johansson, Dembele, Aite, Mitrovic, Rodallega, Martin, Piazon. Coming in at 11th was Niskins Cabano. Coming in 12th was Sonny Aluko. Coming in 13th was Abubakar Kamara. Coming in 14th was Corey Woodrow with 7. And coming in 15th was Matt Smith with 7. Right, round 3. My favourite round is Guess the Player. And before we go into this, Matt, you are on 6 points. Mark, you are on 8 points. So it's all to play for. It's the Guess the Player round. So I'm going to give you 10 facts about a Fulham player. You just have to tell me who you think it is. It's 4 points if you get it in the first 3 guesses, 3 points if you get it in 4 to 6, 2 points if you get it from 7 to 9, and 1 point if you get it on number 10. So keep track of your own scores at home. Okay, here we go. Fact number 1. This player is 6'1". Fact number 2. He has played over 100 games. Number 3. He has captained Fulham several times. That's several, not 7. I guess so the 4 point is out. Fact number 4. He has represented Fulham in the top 2 divisions. Fact number 5.
Stop.
Say again?
I have to go for Hugo. Hugo
You've got
Rodallega.
Hugo Rodallega. Okay, Matt has gone for Hugo Rodallega at question number 5, I believe. 5. Fact number 6. No, 4. You get a 4. Right, sorry. Fact number 5. He's only played under one manager. Fact
Bollocks,
number
Tom
6. He has played for Scotland.
He's only played under one manager.
Only played under one manager.
I'm so confused.
You got a chance before I go on to number 7? You got a chance? Want to guess?
You carry it on. Carry it on.
Okay.
My mind's blank.
Okay. Number 7. He came third in the Player of the Season vote for the past 2 seasons. Question number 8. He once scored a cheeky goal with his backside at the Putney end.
Yeah, it is Jmac, isn't it?
That's really harsh because he hasn't played for Ranieri, has he?
Oh
Marcus-
my god,
Kevin
is
McDonald.
that true? Oh my god.
That's unbelievable.
I had Jmac in mind when you said 6'1". I thought it's going to be too obvious. I'm not going to allow that. Oh,
Well,
that is such a
let's go through
cheeky
the
little
last-
part.
Let's go through the remaining clues just in case, for matter of disclosure and formalities. Number 9. His name abbreviated is easily confused with Big Mac. I think everyone should have worked it out by now, but we'll go for it. Number 10. He co-lifted the Championship playoff trophy on the balcony at Wembley. If you haven't got it by now, then shame on you. It is, of course, Kevin McDonald. So I'm going to give... which one did you get it in? You got it off the cheeky end. You got it off number 8, so you get 1 point, which leaves you with a grand total of 9 points, beating Matt Domm with a score of 9-6.
Well played, Mark.
Yeah, so congratulations to Mark. You win the quiz, and as your prize this week, you get your very own Mohammed Al Fayed as Santa Garden Gnome. I'm pretty sure everyone has got one of them already, so you'll get the second one.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. Right. Now we move on from the quiz, and we've got one last thing to do.
Fulham.
Welcome back, and that one last thing to do is to look ahead to Newcastle United. Now, this is a team. Now, I've got a Newcastle supporting best friend, and he has vehemently said that we are Newcastle United's bogey team because I think he's gone to see Fulham Newcastle 6 times. He hasn't seen them even get a point. So, for some reason, he's not feeling all that confident ahead of this weekend. But let's get serious about it first. Do we want to classify this as a 6-pointer already in December 17th? We were talking about them when we classified West Ham as a 6-pointer. So do we want to do the same with Newcastle? Matt, you first.
We've had about 5 of those already, haven't we? So what's the harm?
Yeah, what's the harm in having another one?
Yeah, it's a 6-pointer. We've got to win, and at this point, it doesn't matter how it happens. 1-0, get Rico to save 20 shots, or whatever it takes. Just do it. Just stop the ball going in the net. Put Dennis Adair in the bin, and let's hope we can get something out of it.
I think that may be the one and only time in history that Sergio Rico and Mark Crossley will be in the same sentence together, by hook, by way, or by hook or by crook. Mark, same question to you. We know this is must win. Do we think we can win? Is a different matter entirely.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think, historically, St James's Park has been somewhere where, there's always been a lot of late drama. As results go, we've always done quite well there. It's provided us with one of the best away days we've had in the last few years as well. So I think we've got every chance of going there and getting a result. I think if we can play to our strengths and keep Newcastle kind of pinned back, then I think they can go into their shells. And I think West Ham proved it a few weeks ago when they went there and did them over 3-0. I think they had a similar result as well when Wolves beat them at St James's as well. I thought Newcastle played well for patches, but they're very similar to us in that they're not clinical enough in their chances. Solomon Rondon's had a good couple of games recently, and he'll be a threat. But I honestly think we should have enough quality to beat them. It's just a case of whether, which Fulham are going to turn up on the day. I guess it's going to be an interesting match, to say the least.
Indeed, and sort of looking at this from a tactical perspective, do we see how many changes do you envision us making, if any? Do you see us making any changes to the back line, or do you think we're going to finally get some stability and go for the same back three, same back four rather, for 3 games in a row. Matt, do you think we're going to stick or twist, as it were?
I think it sort of depends on Mawson's injury. He got taken off against West Ham, which, by the way, I think, without having watched it back, was Dennis Adoy's fault again. But it kind of depends on that. I think Ranieri has, for whatever reason, decided that that's the 4 he wants to go with. So if they're fit, then I imagine he'll go for it again. That's not to say I agree with it, but I agree that we need consistency in the defence, and that's the only way we're going to improve. So, if Adoy starts, then so be it, and we'll get behind him as always. But I don't see many changes. I know a lot of people are asking for Seri to be dropped, but I think actually a big part of the reason we went off the boil, apart from being 2-0 down, was when Seri came off. We lost that kind of controlling of possession in the middle, and I think he actually, for the mistakes he makes and for his lack of tracking back, that's not the kind of player he is. And he actually did keep the ball moving quite well against West Ham. So I think I want Adoy to come out and Christie to come in. And obviously I want AK to be nowhere near the starting lineup. But aside from that, I think it'll be much the same.
Right, fair enough. I do like the fact it's similar to what Callum Chambers went through after the Arsenal game. Dennis Adoy, so be it, as if we're resigned to the fact that he's a terrible player, which I think is a tad harsh, but I can certainly see where you're coming from. And again, Mark, just sort of on a tactical formational basis, how do you see us lining up? How many, you mentioned earlier about strengths and weaknesses. What do you think are our strengths, and how do you think we can sort of line up to get the best out of them?
It's difficult because I genuinely look at that Newcastle team and I think we can exploit them down the wing. But unlucky for us, our wings, aren't exactly the best part of our team. I think I agree with Matt. I'd bring in Christie. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd still like to see Steven Sessegnon get a run out. I think he's ready for it, and I think he'd offer us something fresh. So I'd like to see him get in the team somehow. I think Maxime Le Marchand, as credit to him, I think he deserves a run if he's fit. I wasn't massively impressed with Joe Bryan. But then again, we do need a lot of pace down that side, so it could be needed there. The midfield, I wasn't too worried about them. Like Matt said, keep Seri in the team. Kenny needs a chance to keep proving himself and keep getting minutes under his belt, and hopefully he'll give us that captain's performance we desperately need off him now. I'd like to see Ryan Sessegnon back in the team, as I'm sure we all would. But more than anything, I want to see Mitrovic come into his own against a Newcastle side who threw him out in the cold. I really want to see him grab a goal, maybe 2, maybe even 3, who knows. I just want to see us kind of get lift off at last and give all of us travelling fans, a bit of a boost, which I think we all deserve. But that's all going to come with a team cohesive performance. And like I said, I think that those kind of battles are going to be on the wing, whether that means that Schürrle drops out because he lacks the pace. And, unfortunately, it could be seen as Ranieri likes him so much. We could stick with AK. I guess we'll find out soon. A word for Vietto, maybe. I don't know what on earth has happened to him. I think after that horrendous 45-minute appearance he made, was it against Bournemouth? Was that the right game I'm thinking of? When he was absolutely shocking. And since then he's kind of been frozen out a little bit. Maybe we'll see him return his way to the bench. But who knows? It looks like we're starting to play Ranieri bingo at the moment. So I'm looking forward to 2 o'clock on Saturday when that team lineup comes out for sure.
Right, I suppose there's really one last thing to do before we wrap up, and that's get a sort of official, unofficial score prediction. Matt, to you first.
Oh, it's difficult. I think we might get a 1-1. It's funny that it's that kind of game where against West Ham, and after that game, I'm sort of thinking I've resigned myself to the fact that we're done for. So it's just the sort of game we're going to go and win 3-0 or something like that, just to kind of bring that hope back, But I think we can get something. I think a win might be a bit beyond us, but I think a 1-1 might be what we get.
And Mark, same question over to you.
I'm gonna, hopefully, fingers crossed, this is gonna break a couple of ducks for us. I'm gonna go for a 1-0 win, so it'll be our first away win of the campaign, our first clean sheet of the season, and hopefully Mitrovic will score in the 91st minute against the Toon Army and celebrate in front of them accordingly. So yeah, I'm gonna go for a 1-0 win.
1-0 win for you, and similar, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give Mark the pleasure, sort of as I did last week. 8:06 p.m. on the 17th of December 2018. Mark predicts that we are going to get a clean sheet. So put that in your calendars, trademark it, whatever you want to do. All that's left for us to sort of do is to say goodbye. Say goodbye from all of us. It's a goodbye from Matt.
Goodbye, mate. Take care.
It's a goodbye from Mark.
Goodbye, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much. And all that's left to say is that we are just going to be going on a little bit of a winter break. English football finally gets a winter break. It's just coming through us. There's going to be a bit of a podcast break, and there will be a pod back on the 28th of December in between the Wolves and Huddersfield game, and then we'll be back into a normal schedule on the 8th of January, which I believe is after the FA Cup game. But just because the podcast is stopping, that's not going to stop all the wonderful Q&As and blogs and articles and all that sort of stuff that's going to be coming out on the Fulham Focus website. So by all means, do keep an eye out from that. And one last thing before we go, glad that I have the privilege to do this. Have a very, very happy Christmas and a New Year. If you don't celebrate Christmas, whatever holiday you celebrate, even if you don't celebrate a holiday, whatever you decide to do between this time and the New Year, have a good one. Let's hope the results start to go our way, and we'll be able to enter a new year on a much happier note than we have been in the last couple of weeks and months. So once again, a happy holidays and a happy New Year to every single one of you Fulham fans that is listening. All that's left for us to say is, come on, you Whites.